Welcome to the Eric Thompson Show. Passionate conservative fighting to preserve our constitutional rights.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
A Marine Corps veteran and family man whose life's creed is faith, family, and country. Join Eric today as he covers current events from a conservative worldview. Now, here's your host, Eric Thompson.
Hi, welcome to another Eric Thompson Show podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm out here in hot California on July 20th, 2022. This is our Day in Review podcast. Going to go over 4 or 5 of the stories that I think you should know about if you're just getting off work or if you're just catching up on things. Thank you for listening in. You can always head over to my website, ettalkshow.com, ettalkshow.com. We'll have a lot of information on the podcast as we continue to grow this. President Joe Biden decided to try to pull off another public appearance. And Joe today was speaking about climate change, about this emergency that's underway, and the fact that he's got to do something about it. And I'll get to the details about it exactly here in a second. But one of the things that Joe did that was interesting, Joe has a really big problem with speaking. He has a problem with details. He has a problem with specifics. Well, Joe was speaking and he was talking about, the pollution and in Delaware and where he grew up and the refineries and just everything else. But he said, quote, I lived up the road in an apartment complex where we moved to Delaware. And just up the road, a little school I went to, Holy Rosary Grade School. And because it was a 4-lane highway that was accessible, my mother drove us rather than us being able to walk. And Biden said, guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening. You have to put your windshield wipers on to literally get the oil slick off the window, unquote. And then here's what Joe said, which caused a lot of a buzz today.
And guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening? You had to put on their windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer. And why can't for the longest time, Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
Yeah, Joe has cancer. Did you know that? Well, the White House had to quickly respond because it went viral and there were fact checks going on. The White House responded later by claiming that Biden, quote, mistakenly stated, present tense, that he has cancer, unquote. He doesn't have cancer. His 2021 report showed that he had some lesions that were taken off, some non-melanoma skin cancers that were removed when he first got into office. But everything else since then has been crystal clear. So that was a story today that Joe said he had cancer, but then the White House quickly said, nah, he had cancer. He does not have cancer. Now, during this speech, which was to announce he was going to be taking executive actions on climate change, climate crisis. And that he was to do this, he was going to focus on offshore wind farms. Because Joe described the climate change as an emergency. See, when the president claims something's an emergency, he can typically, like with COVID, he can then he has the ability to make decisions, kind of like having a temporary permission to override our constitutional rights. So Joe said at this speech at the Somerset, Massachusetts, that this is an emergency. Quote, this is an emergency, and I will look at it that way. I said last week, I say again, loud and clear. As president, I'll use my executive powers to combat climate change. The climate crisis is an absence of congressional action, unquote. What he was referring to is West Virginia Senator, Democrat, moderate, Joe Manchin. he's not down for this Build Back Broke program, the Build Back Better, as Joe would like to refer it as. He sees inflation and the government out of control spending as just, it prevents any more massive trillion-dollar spending projects, which makes Joe in the left mad because the Senate's divided 50-50, and if Joe Manchin doesn't come on board, they cannot get a bill pushed through. So just like Barack Obama, Joe's president when he was the vice president, remember Obama said, hey, you guys, you immigration activists keep yelling at me, but I'm not a king. I can't just go give amnesty to people. But then he mysteriously later on said, well, then I will direct the Department of Homeland Security and Border Patrol that they cannot arrest and deport children that came over as illegal aliens with illegal alien parents. So they're going to be under the protection of DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, and you cannot touch them, which is basically, in effect, a pseudo amnesty. So Obama did actually kind of give amnesty, doing a workaround. Well, Joe says, okay, well, I can't get Manchin on board. So some of my executive orders, the White House gave a short list here. First one is to protect communities from extreme heat and dangerous climate impacts. Unquote. What does that mean? Well, the White House says, well, that means it's going to include $2.3 billion is going to be going into the Federal Emergency Management Agency's Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Program of 2022. Yes, that's actually a title. And it's intended to help communities, quote, increase resilience to heat waves, drought, wildfires, floods, hurricanes, and other hazards by preparing before disaster strikes, unquote. Executive actions they're looking at also includes an effort to lower cooling costs for communities that are suffering from extreme heat. What does that mean for tribes and territories and states that have a lot of heat, like California? Money, money, money. Because the progressives are functioning as though we are already a Marxist state, socialist, democratic socialist, whatever title you want to go by. The government's just throwing money out to supplement people's lives. That way they have control over you. Additionally, the Biden administration will consider potential wind power projects in the Gulf of Mexico and the proposed one off of Galveston, Texas, and Lake Charles, Louisiana. Now, they won't allow for any drilling, but they sure will allow for some massively inefficient, expensive wind turbines. The White House's estimates, you know how those work out. They have it that this will power over 3 million homes with clean energy. That's assuming that they're actually turning. Biden's also directing the Secretary of Interior to, quote, advance clean energy development, unquote, off the coast of Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, to ensure that, quote, these southeast states, they'll be able to benefit from the good-paying jobs in the burgeoning offshore wind industry, unquote. So those are good. Here's the reality on wind turbines. I live out in California. If you go through the areas like Palm Springs and other areas of the state, just like if you go through Snyder, Texas, and West Texas, you'll see the turbines, but guess what happens? If the wind isn't blowing, they're not turning, which is why Texas ran out of energy last winter. It's the same reason why Tesla is asking their people that own their cars in Texas, since a significant part of their grid comes from wind, hey, probably not a good idea to charge your cars during the day. And this is what Joe thinks is going to combat the climate crisis. By the way, China and Russia and India, They're actually increasing their pollution output. But hey, we're the United States. We'll go ahead and take it on the chin. Another story that you need to know about is that Jerry Nadler, he said it out loud. He's admitting what the Democrats really want to do with this proposed assault weapons ban that they're working on. The House Judiciary Committee Chairman Nadler admitted Wednesday that the purpose of a renewed congressional effort to pass a federal assault ban to outlaw the rifles, even those that are in common use, being used right now and for hunting and for shooting and for protecting people. Now, a Republican from North Carolina on the committee said, okay, well, you said in your opening remarks these military-style weapons, which they're not, are designed to kill the most people in the shortest amount of time. So the Judiciary Committee Republicans said, well, no, the sign, look at the sign, shall not be infringed. The Second Amendment. What you're talking about would violate the Second Amendment. So at one point, Representative Dan Bishop, Republican, North Carolina, challenged him. And here he is trying to get them to admit that this is not just about red flag laws and stopping new ARs from being purchased and going after people that are considered dangerous. The point of the bill is actually to take away everyone's AR-15 rifles. Here is the exchange.
Gentleman from North Carolina, seek recognition.
To speak on the amendment.
Gentleman is recognized.
I would like to yield to anyone on the other side who would dispute that this bill bans weapons that are in common use in the United States today. Would anyone on the other side dispute that this bill would ban weapons that are in common use in the United States today?
Would the gentleman yield?
I would, for an answer to that question.
Yeah, that's the point of the bill.
So to clarify, Mr. Chairman, you're saying it is the point of the bill to ban weapons that are in common use in the United States today?
Yes, the problem is
if the gentleman will yield, particularly.
So there you go. They have "you shall not infringe" in these on these stands behind the Republicans, and he got Nadler to say it out loud. Yes, we want to take away your guns, regardless of the Second Amendment. I thought that was a pretty big story. Hey, if you're looking to save money right now in this crazy economy with massive inflation, and you're trying to figure out where to save a few bucks, well, I have an idea. I have an idea where you can save up to around $900 a year per family by doing nothing different except having Pure Talk USA be your cell phone provider instead of AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, or Sprint. And my wife and I switched over a year and a half ago, so it's real quick. It's this simple. You go to getpuretalk.com, getpure, P-U-R-E, talk.com. Choose the plan that you're on right now, with Verizon or AT&T. And then if you need phones, they got discounted phones. If you don't, you just order the free SIM cards. They show up in the phone, you pop them in your phones, and guess what happens? Nothing. You're going to still be on the same 5G network you were on before you put the SIM cards in. Same tower as the major carrier, but for about half the cost. Couple benefits, additional benefits, besides saving around 50%, $900 a year per family, they don't charge you if you go over on your data. Your bill's the same every month. My bill's $47 and change every month for 2 phones, even if I go over on my data. Lastly, I think they have better customer service in the Atlanta, Georgia area, U.S.-based, great people. I don't have to talk to them often because I don't have any problems with the service. So check them out. Go to getpuretalk.com. No contract. Don't have to buy equipment. Don't have to switch phone numbers. No brainer. Getpuretalk.com, promo code FLS at checkout. And the promo code is going to get you 50% off your first month on your first Pure Talk bill, which is going to be about half of what you've been paying. So your first bill will be really, really low. Getpuretalk.com, promo code FLS. You can't go wrong. All right. The Pete Buttigieg, probably one of the top 5 most incompetent people in Biden's cabinet. He was the governor, the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and they called him Pothole Buttigieg because he couldn't keep his roads fixed and up and running there, but yet because he's a homosexual man that's married, he was put on the diverse cabinet as the transportation secretary. Well, on Wednesday, he was speaking on Squawk Box, and the interviewer asked, "Hey, how are you going to help out? How are you going to help the Europeans since Russia's, possibly not going to supply natural gas? Are you guys going to supply natural gas? I know that's not your job." So they went kind of back and forth. But then Buttigieg, at the end of his comments, you're going to hear him here. He's going to say, well, this is the whole idea. If we go green energy, this won't be an issue. And he's astonished that Americans don't want to change to wind, which is unpredictable, and they don't want to go buy $60,000 electric cars.
Of geopolitical risks that come with the 20th century economy. I'm still astonished that some folks, and I felt this, I was testifying in Congress yesterday, some folks seem to really struggle to let go of the status quo. If someone wants to raise the reasons why it's hard, those are absolutely challenges we should be taking on and working through. But if it's done as an excuse to do nothing, all we're doing is signing up for more of these vexing questions.
And there you go. I'm astonished that Americans don't want to follow the government into the abyss of no energy. Hey, thank you so much for listening. This has been the Eric Thompson Show Day in Review podcast. Again, the website is ettalkshow.com. Talk to you tomorrow.
We hope you were encouraged today. Make sure to check out Eric's website for articles, podcasts, and a daily show schedule at www.ettalkshow.com and connect with MAGA supporters on Eric's social media platform, www.magabook.com.